everybody, I'm glad to have you with me today. I have a canker sore on the left side of my tongue and it's really bugging me. I'm gonna notice it the entire video, but I still want to do this video. I want to talk about some technique related things. I have noticed personally that there are some mistakes that I make blending wise on a somewhat repeated basis. Like you'd think you spend all this time doing makeup, you try to do it every day basically. You would maybe have the practice makes perfect theory, right? That it's just gonna be really good all the time, but it's not. It's not. I think actually you get so used to putting your makeup on, you can have what I think are best described as just some oversights. And I'm not saying these are like huge deals. I mean, in the scope of the world and everything that's happening in the world, makeup is a very, very small, minor deal. But I thought it just might be worth talking about because I'm a real human being. You all are human beings. I mean, there might be a few robots watching, but basically we are people, who can make mistakes as we put makeup on. And sometimes I catch it before I've finished my full face. Sometimes I catch it like hours later when I'm in the car doing the rear view mirror test, like, oh, what does it really look like? Holy cow, something's wrong. Sometimes I don't notice it till I'm sitting down editing a video and I'm cringing like, ooh, I hope nobody else saw that. So I just thought I'd call myself out on some of these things and maybe I won't make the mistakes so often and maybe you guys won't either. 5 blending mistakes or oversights that I've been making. One of them is the lower jaw area down here, blending out foundation. On more than one occasion, I have found that I will have my finished face done or nearly done, and then I'll see that I've got like a streaky blend of foundation like somewhere down in here. And usually it's with a liquidy foundation. Maybe it's something that sets kind of fast on my skin, so like I didn't work quite quickly enough. I might have passed over the area but didn't really make the effort to work it in. And then you've got this like set makeup streak on your skin, and maybe if you've passed over it with some powder and didn't pick up on it yet, you've really got it locked in there. So in my little demo clips today, I'm trying to show you me doing it the right way. So I really, made a point to buff it in, taking that extra effort there on that lower jaw area, which to me tends to be an area where I need less coverage anyway. The zones that I'm really paying attention to, are right up here. Like this is always priority number 1 is this area around the under eye, right? I'm trying to brighten it, even it out, make it look perfected, make it not look too dry. The list goes on, but then down here, it's like everything, tends to be pretty even, so I'll just kind of glaze over it, and then that's when I end up having a mistake. Another area where I have failed to blend at times is the tip of my nose. I've noticed this like after videos, or I've noticed it when I've done my face makeup and I'm doing my eyes, and then I've got a mirror like up to myself like this, putting mascara on, and I'm like, oh, I see like actual, like an end to my foundation and maybe just a little powder's been tossed over it, but it hasn't really been blended. This area under the snout right here, like what's going on? So that is a place where I think I have to make a point to go over that with my brush, and I don't always do it. I mean, if you've watched any kind of fast forwarded demo of me applying foundation, you probably haven't seen me like totally catering to that area a whole lot, Here's another thing that I want to talk about that I think I sometimes do wrong, and I think the tip might help a lot of people, but it's when you're working with a really shimmery highlight. Like the one I was using today is from my Lorac Pro contour palette. I love this palette so much. I use it all the time. And the shimmery highlight, right? It's like a light pearly, really going there. Beautiful highlight, wearable still, but it's very shimmery. And I think sometimes what we do is we lay those products on, like we see them going on our cheek and we just kind of put it there, admire it in our lovely lighting here in our room, and then just kind of move on. But sometimes with these powder highlights, I'm talking about powder highlights here, even though they're catching the light and maybe looking pretty on camera, in full-on daylight, they can look more like just product sitting there on top of the skin. I actually feel like buffing it in, and I think the more potent the highlight, the more strong and shimmery and frosty it is, the more you need to do this. And I think one time I made this point with like one of those Smashbox little highlighter trios, the one that collabed with Casey Holmes. It's like the most shimmery one in that pearl palette. I always thought it looked best when I would really like kind of work in circular motions going over it. And nowadays I'm also enjoying taking my highlight up above this area. That might not be a real thing everyone wants to do, but for me I think it kind of flatters my face a bit more. But when you buff in the highlight and then you see yourself in broad daylight, it looks more like glowing skin and less like product just sitting there. And I really think that's what a lot of this comes down to for me, is like things can still play off okay in this lighting that I've got myself surrounded by up here in my makeup room. And if you're at home and you're just sitting in front of a makeup mirror, you know, you've got this artificial light on you that might make things look a little better than they look when you're looking in the rearview mirror or just in full noonday lighting, right? So buff in your highlights. You'll still look highlighted and glowy, but it's gonna make those powders more one with the skin. Okay, here's another thing I do wrong, and I welcome your tips as well, but the inner part of my crease. This is a real problem area for me in terms of blending. I feel like for my eye shape, I'm very preoccupied with what's happening out here. I feel like it flatters my eye shape most when I've got like the outer V, you know, the color kind of pulled up and out a little bit from the eye. And then I think I'll flat out neglect putting product very far in here, or I just simply won't blend it as much as it needs to be blended. So I think I need to be more mindful of, like, when I'm going in with my E25 brush and taking that first crease color, like really putting it in there, making a point to blend it out, go slightly up. I'm not saying I want a lot of darkness concentrated in there because I just don't think that's flattering for my eye. But you know, it needs to come up and be blended out a little bit more, and then maybe with a separate brush going over that, I guess. Maybe another thing that might work for me is taking a smaller brush in there with a little product and getting it into that crease area, but again, I don't want too much going on there. I want it to be light, I want it to look blended and mesh with everything else. But I don't know, some days it's fine, some days I'm like, oh, that could have been, you know, worked over a little bit more. So I think it might just be taking a little more time to pay attention to the inner part of the eye as much as I'm dealing with and working over the outer part of the eyes. But that's an example of something I sometimes pick up on as I'm going back and editing videos, and I'm like, oh, would have blended that just a little bit more. And here's my last thing, and this is more of like just an effect I want to go for more often on my lower lash line. Brushes that I often pick up to do my lower lash line would be my E21 smudger brush. You know, it's a really small brush. It's smudgy, but it's small. Or like just an angled liner brush, and those are two pretty precise brushes. Even though this is a smudger, you see what I mean? It's gonna get the product pretty precisely where you want it. And then I'll say in videos like, oh, I'm gonna make it smoky, so I'm gonna use like one of these brushes. Well, I think really a pencil brush, or even like the brush that I'll use for my outer corner here, this 315 from MUA Makeup Academy Professional, something like that. Like if I really want to go there and make it smoky, and I did it with this brush today, I took it down there under the lower lash line, and that really, you know, just allows the shadow to pull out just slightly from your lower lash line. It's a touchy area, I know, because we've gone to these painstaking measures to get this all brightened and evened with concealer, so it's like I don't want to have my shadow drift super low, and I don't want to risk fallout coming down too low. I think if it's just not too big of a brush, but slightly bigger than one of these, you know, it can buff that shadow out a little bit more, and I did it today, and I'm liking what's going on there because it's ultra soft still. It's not too harsh on the eyes, and it diffused the shadow actually a bit more than it might usually be. But everything looks super blended on my under eye, and it might just be coming down ever so slightly lower than that little like primary crease that I have under the lower lash line. So I don't know, just something to think about. You all might, you know, have those habits already every day in your makeup, but that's something I'm gonna try to work on. So yeah, I hope this was at least a little bit helpful to you guys, just kind of calling myself out on a few things that I think I could do better if I just pay a little more attention to it, you know? But thank you guys so much for taking time to watch, and I will see you again very soon. Bye.